It could have been so much more for City, given the number of chances they created. Let's just confirm them. They finish top of the group, and as I mentioned, in theory, they're on the easier side of the bracket. Juventus finish second. For more on this, we welcome in Nathan Manure, but we'll kick things off with Alexis and Rob, who are at the game. Alexis, an impressive performance from the Premier League side.
Yeah, Dan, I don't think Pep Guardiola could have asked for much more. 3 from 3. You spoke to Pep Guardiola yesterday, asked him about the pressure of putting out a good performance in this game against such a big club, especially after the season that they had. And, Rob, they were dominant.
They were. I mean, I think that's quite a big statement, really, because this was the hardest game in the group. They had to win to finish top of Group G and get into the easier side of the draw, and they breezed through it. You know, there was parts of that game that looked like the old City. You know, the movement was there, the speed of pass was there, the link-up play between the forwards, the goals. You know, Juventus will feel that they haven't really given the best version of themselves, and you have to take that into account. But in terms of the context of this tournament, I think that's a massive statement.
Well, you guys were talking about it yesterday on the show about Rodri and how much we would see of him, whether he would get the start that he's been pushing for since April. He did start today. I know some people were probably like, ooh, maybe we should wrap him in some bubble wrap, prepare him for the Premier League season, but he played just over an hour today.
Yeah, and did really well and looked really comfortable. I actually think that you probably saw City's preferred midfield three today with Rodri, Reinders and Bernardo Silva. They looked far more solid. You know, Juventus were limited in transition. You can just see the class of Rodri when he gets on the ball, that quickness of thought, the passes that he plays out wide. Everything just looked a lot smoother for City, and we hadn't really seen that last season. Everyone will know that it was a disastrous season, and things just looked a little bit disjointed. Today, you know, as I say, I don't want to get too ahead of myself because it's still very early, but it did look like the old City a little bit.
I was just going to say, because you look at the goal scorers as well, from Doku to Foden to Erling Haaland as well, just to name a few. It just shows the depth in the squad that we're so used to seeing Manchester City have, but we probably didn't see it as potent last season.
I mean, exactly. And if you're Pep Guardiola and you can turn to your bench and bring on Phil Foden and Erling Haaland, that shows everything about the depth of this squad. They've strengthened well over the summer, brought in Antony, Reinders and Ryan Shirky, you know, 3 players that are filling holes in that squad. Antony was terrific today at left back. They haven't had an out-and-out left back since about 2021. Reinders, has got legs and movement in midfield. They lacked that last season. There was no real kind of pace and energy in midfield. There was no runners going in behind, and Reinders offers all that. And again, it's still very, very early. It's early even in this tournament, but the signs are there for Pep Guardiola. He'll be so happy with what he saw today.
Yeah, very happy Pep Guardiola, which is something we haven't seen that much after the last Premier League season. Dan, we're going to send it back to you because Rob somehow managed to wear City colours today, and now he has to go change his shirt.
Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. What an asset a 100% fit Rodri is going to be for City.
Absolutely, and Reinders, as Rob mentioned, the new signings. Savinho looked sharp, Doku looked sharp. I agree 100%. The passing was slick, it was fast. We saw a bit of the old pressing that sort of left them last year in their tough times. They obviously have a threat up front, and they have Marmoush. They've got Erling Haaland, who came off the bench today. I thought Diaz played Vlahovic particularly well for the most part. They have got a natural left back in Antony. There's a big question mark, I think, when the season starts about his qualities defensively. Very good going forward, but he gets caught out defensively. But he's a good footballer, and that sort of fits into the narrative of how they play. And that was a very, very positive performance. Yeah. And I think, they're one of the sides that we have big questions about. Manchester City, what kind of season are they going to have? Are they going to put last year's debacle, as it turned out to be for the most part, are they going to put that behind them? And are they going to come back stronger and be ready for this fight with Arsenal and Liverpool, the two teams we think they're going to be going head-to-head with? And I think the early signs, and it's only early, it's encouraging. It's encouraging. That being said, as Rob Dawson said, Juventus, whether they were just outplayed and bedazzled with this City side, or whether they just had a bad day at the office, because it was a little easy at times for Man City to play the football they did today. But I will say, when they did play it, It was excellent.
Hey, Nathan, doing Manchester City TV is going to be a lot easier next season on this evidence.
Oh, to be honest, Dan, as the goals are going in today, I thought, thank goodness I'm on the show tonight. I get an easy run of things instead of you just coming at me all the time. It's the worst, it's bad, it's this, it's whatever. But instead, as you say, and as Craig said, they're really good footballers. And when they perform like this, you can see teams suffer. Like Juve today, Yes, they've had an off day, but I think a lot of that's to do with how City played against them. I think some of the individual performances and the collective, the way that they perceived the game, the movement, obviously there were a couple of little errors within it, but that's as good as we've seen City in a very, very long time. And best of all, from their perspective, they have depth as well on the bench. You can see that because of that, there's a real sense of competition for places, it feels like. So those guys, they're going out there, and yes, they want the collective to win, but they're trying to show what they can do. And as it stands, I think the sort of managerial, the assistant managerial change on the side as well, with, say, Pep Linders, Kolo Touré, the set-piece coach, those guys are trying to impress as well. And so the way that City are playing, in some ways it feels familiar, but there's something that also feels a little bit different about it. Maybe it's the higher press, maybe it's the way that they stretch the game at certain points. But the fact is, this is the best we have seen them for a long time. And I'll be honest, coming up against Juve today, with Juve knowing that they needed a draw to finish top, I didn't think City would blow them away in the way that they did. So it's a very big statement, and you'll take a lot of confidence from it.
I thought the depth was a problem.
Well, they're at home. The problem people are at home. That's all right.
Let them.
They're sad.
I mean, there's too many. I mean, and they're taking Pep Linders from. Where's the loyalty? Let Pep Linders all that success at Liverpool, and he goes into management at RB Salzburg, I think it was. It was a disaster. Now he goes to City, so that's a bit of a jump across the rivalry. But yeah, I mean, this is what we've been saying. Strength and depth is good. Now, I get it. There's some sat at home, and you've just got to deal with that. This is big boys football. Big squads, big money, big decisions to be made. So, yeah, those players will have to earn their way in or be sold. But what they do have is pretty good on today's evidence. I really like, obviously, Rodri's like a new signing, but I do like one or two of the new signings, particularly in the middle of the park.
Yeah, Rangers look good, didn't he? Let's just confirm then what that means for our bracket, which is really starting to take place now. If you take a look at the left-hand side, I think it's fair to say it is the easiest when you take a look at the quality of the teams that are on show there. The right-hand side that Juventus find themselves on, you're in a bracket which includes, of course, Bayern Munich and PSG, you would say.
Well, I wouldn't say the right side's pretty easy, is it not?
Why?
Well, PSG are big favourites to beat Inter Miami.
Yes, no, but I mean the right side is definitely the hardest of the two. So Juventus have found themselves now on a difficult side of the bracket. Manchester City, meanwhile, you look at those teams that are on the left-hand side.
Look at Borussia Dortmund or Monterrey.
But overall, would you prefer to be on the left-hand side of the bracket or the right-hand side?
I prefer to be sat at home.
Oh my God, so do I. I don't even know how that's complicated. Manchester City then sit, and I think...
Well, there's better teams in the left-hand side.
There aren't better teams. What teams?
Oh.
What teams are better in the left-hand side?
You think the left-hand side of the bracket is weaker than the right-hand side?
Definitely.
Into Miami, Monterrey. Borussia Dortmund.
Stop saying Borussia Dortmund.
What a crap.
Look, PSG are going to play Bayern Munich, aren't they, in theory?
No.
So one of those teams...
You watched Flamengo. Did you not watch, was it Flamengo against Chelsea?
Well, yes, but Chelsea are terrible as well.
Wow. Why don't we just do 20 minutes on this bracket?
I don't know. Pep Linders, the bracket, you bring it all up.
I don't really think it makes... At the end of the day, you still got to go out and play.
Yes, I don't want to go into much detail with you about it. Rob, Alexis, taking a look at this Manchester City, despite Craig's complaints, will be happier they're on that side. And I think if you're putting money on a team to win this tournament, Manchester City's where it's at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because we know that Real Madrid is potentially lurking there, and Real Madrid is a team that has had Manchester City's number if we're going to go off of recent Champions League as well. So I think they'll be pretty happy to avoid that.
Yeah, and I think City actually will agree with Dan, because they were well aware of what half of the draw they wanted to be in before the game kicked off today. They went out to win the game. You could see it in the way that they started the game. They were desperate to win, desperate to be in that side of the draw. And I think it's been quite unpredictable so far. I don't think anyone really has laid down a massive marker until today. I think other teams will be looking at City today against Juventus, the style of the performance, the result, and thinking they are probably the team to beat in this now.
Yeah, 13 goals that they've scored, only 2 conceded. That's pretty impressive so far. So is Manchester City your favourite now, or would you give Real Madrid a little bit of a shout too?
I think in terms of the draw and the performance today, I think you can't really look past Man City, but Real Madrid are Real Madrid. And in these competitions, when the title of world champions on the line, they come through these games, don't they? So I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, Dan, there you have it.
No, they don't. They're rubbish at the moment, Real Madrid. We saw them all last season, Rob. Why all of a sudden they put their feet on American soil and they're better than, I don't know, PSG, who have been the best team by miles in the Champions League.
And he's already, Xabi Alonso, talking about the same problems that we saw all last year every weekend, which is work rate.
Yes.
He's talking about work rate. He's talking about we need to defend from the front. We need the guys, I know Mbappe's not been around, but we need, when available and when the season starts, the Mbappes and the Vinicius and the Jude Bellinghams, he's touched on it. We need them to start off the work rate from the front. And so there is no suggestion thus far, and it is very, very early. I mean, Xabi Alonso, he's only just got his slippers on at Real Madrid. There's a lot.
Why is he wearing slippers?
There's a lot of work to be done.
Where's he wearing?
Just shut up. There's a lot of work to be done at this club, and I don't think, at this moment in time, particularly the way they look defensively as well, I really don't think that they are going to be a massive threat in this competition.
As Rob mentioned, Real Madrid take on Salzburg tonight. If they win that game, they will take on Juventus in the knockout stages, in theory going to the much harder side of the bracket, Nathan.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, if Real Madrid was written on that right side, it probably would look a bit more impressive. But when it's just like Group H winners, like, well, who is that? But yeah, I understand
It's
what
Real
you're trying to say,
Madrid,
Dan.
Nathan.
Don't
Just
let
use
Craig
your
bring
brain.
you down. Enjoy football. Enjoy your football, Dan. Enjoy your football. Don't let Craig bring you down.
No,
just
but
smile. Let's get through this. Come on.
Nathan, I feel dirty today.
What, because we're talking about it seriously?
No, I'm freaking talking.
No, but that's fine. Don't start. Don't start. I don't
freaking-
need it. We don't need it. We've done lovely. Alexis will say thank you very much. Rob, stay with us because we're going to talk about transfers a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Liverpool continue to add to their squad. It's been a busy summer for them so far, hasn't it? Kerkez made official today to make that move from Bournemouth to steel up their defence. Just a reminder what sort of player they are getting from the Cherries. Just 21 years of age. Obviously impressed last season in particular. Nadem and Rob with us. Craig, you look at this, you can't really see too many problems with it, huh?
No, it's just, no, he's a very good player. Very, very good player. And he's young, as you see there on the graphic. So everything's going his way. But as good as he is, it's the big question you always have. It's just a big step, isn't it? From Bournemouth, who are a very good, solid Premier League side now under Areola, to Liverpool, where the expectations just go through the roof. Andy Robertson has been brilliant for them for several years, but he's been flagging. Tsimikas is he's been a squad player for them. It's been a problem area. I suppose both full-back areas have been something that the manager is having to look at, particularly with Trent Alexander leaving. But the left-back area was an issue because Andy Robertson, he was not as productive going forward as he was, and he was making more mistakes defensively. This guy could have a long and illustrious career at Liverpool. He's good enough, but then you just got to question, how is he going to take the pressure, the added expectations, and fitting into this side? These are the unknowns. In terms of talent, he has it, but he's making a big switch here from a small provincial club to an elite club that's going to be gunning for every major competition.
Just give me a little bit more detail on that, because surely as a defender coming from Bournemouth, where you're asked a lot more questions compared to Liverpool when you don't see the ball as much, where obviously Liverpool expect to win, you're not defending as much. Surely you're under more pressure at a team in which you're looking to defend more than you are, for example, at Liverpool.
Because it's slightly easier when you play, and Bournemouth don't really. They try and play an expansive game. But I think when you're under the cosh a little bit more, it is a little bit easier because you've got a shape, and we see teams defending deep quite a lot, and it is slightly easier to be in a good position when you're doing that. When you play in a side that likes to do both sides of the game and attacking the way Liverpool do, and they expect their fullbacks to be bombing forward, then it's about decision making from his perspective. When does he go forward? When does he work with this back four? Because he's going to be expected to do both sides of the game here, big time. I go back to it. Andy Robertson was a beacon for attacking fullbacks in that left-back area, as was Trent Alexander-Arnold. And so Kerkez is going to be expected to do that in bucket loads, get forward, produce good balls in, produce the end product, but be in the right position defensively. There's going to be a lot more questions asked of him, I think, in terms of his positional sense and how he copes at Liverpool than he did at Bournemouth. It's just the nature of the game. When you step up to a big club like this with these expectations, then things change. But I think he's experienced enough. He should handle it. But you just never know when a younger player goes in to such a big stage.
Nathan?
Yeah, I think you asked a very good question there, because the two situations are different, but Craig has explained it well. And as I look at him going to Liverpool now, well, you know, if he's lucky enough, who could possibly be playing alongside him? Well, it's one Virgil van Dijk playing at left centre-half. So in terms of learning his craft at a different type of club, he's probably got one of the best captains that the Premier League has seen that will be able to walk him through it while also still trusting his ability and understanding that there's a reason why he's there. So the situations are different. And what I would add is, when you are at a team that maybe doesn't have a ton of possession, where the expectation generally isn't as big, I think at times as a player it's quite easy to sort of hide in moments and revert back to, you know, well, we'll just defend well, we'll just do this. But when the limelight is on you, the way it will be at Liverpool's, you know, at Arsenal's, at Man City's and other sides who are more progressive up the table at this moment in time, you have to stand up and be counted. You have to take the ball under pressure. You have to understand in this moment you have to do the right thing. Because if you do the wrong thing for, say, 1 week in April, before you know it, league titles are gone, cup competitions are gone and so on. But I think Kerkez, at the age of 21, is a fantastic age. We've seen how good he's been so far. No doubt he'll be coachable, and now he's entering one of the best environments to develop as a player. And as you said, Dan, this could be a great signing for Liverpool for the next 10 years. So with a bit of luck, that'll be the case. And if Andy Robertson is the one that misses out because of it, you know, his service has been immaculate. But here comes the next person, and that's the way these big football clubs work.
Of course, suggestions that maybe Andy Robertson can be on his way to Atletico Madrid. Just confirm the business that Liverpool have done so far this summer. Vert, Kerkez and, of course, Frimpong as well. We'll talk about the possibility of some other players leaving in a moment with you, Rob. But first off, how blindsided have other clubs been by how quickly and how well and efficient Liverpool have done their business, Rob?
I mean, it's certainly the talk among Premier League rivals. You know, I think that the best clubs, the best run clubs, always strengthen from a position of strength themselves. It'd been very easy for the owners to say, well, we won the league last year, we can tweak it a little bit, maybe a couple of positions here and there, but the squad is good enough to go and challenge for the title again. Well, Liverpool haven't said that. You know, they've replaced Trent Alexander-Arnold with Frimpong. They've bought a left-back in Kerkez and signed one of the most highly rated young players in Europe in Wirtz. You know, that's a real statement of intent from Liverpool, that they're not content with one Premier League title, that they want to go out and win it again and challenge consistently in the Champions League. And I think if you're the likes of Arsenal, Man City, Man United, anyone that's got any kind of ambition of challenging at the top of the table, you're looking at Liverpool as setting the standard at the moment, because it's not even July the 1st. You know, this business has not only been done really, really quickly, it's just been so efficient. You know, all of those three bodies are in the building already. They're going to be there in time for pre-season training. You know, they are the team to beat when the Premier League starts.
We mentioned, of course, the fact that some Liverpool players could be leaving. It's part of Mark Ogden's list, actually, as which players could be departing their clubs this summer. Nunez is at the top of that list. Let's go through with some of these players, shall we? Rob, with you. Let's start off with Darwin Nunez, who we heard heavily linked to Atleti, but Napoli front runners at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and I think obviously Liverpool will be happy that there's interest in Nunez. I mean, he came to Anfield with high expectations for a high fee. For whatever reason, it's not really worked for him. It just shows that, you know, any transfer is a risk. You know, there's never a given in terms of bringing players into a football club. I think if Liverpool can kind of generate a little bit of a fee and have him off the wage bill, they'll be delighted with that. It's just for whatever reason it's not worked out for him, and he didn't get that many opportunities last season with the players that Liverpool have brought in. I think that he's looking at a season perhaps again on the fringes, so it's probably best and time for him to move on now. Yeah,
it was a flop in the end. When you take a look at the money that was spent overall, and as much as people liked him, liked his endeavour, his energy, what he brought on the pitch, in the end you paid all that money for him to get goals. He didn't get them at Liverpool. Will he elsewhere? Was it just the case he was not set up? It was not the right team for him to be walking into?
No, I think it was. I think he's just shown, particularly in the Premier League, that he's been quite rash and raw in front of goal. And it's really never changed. We've had the odd exception where he scored some wonder goals. It's the sort of simplicity of his game that has let him down, where it's the simple tap-in or the holding of a run where he gets caught offside a lot, you know, the timing of a run. And I do see him going somewhere else if Liverpool can recoup at least some of the money. That begs the question then, being a body down in that position, whether he's a natural goal scorer or not, which he hasn't been for Liverpool. He was better at Benfica. But it does beg the question, yeah, they're probably not going to go out and spend 100 million on some top-level striker because they probably don't have the money now, having spent it elsewhere. But they're probably going to need a body in there. I mean, you know, Jota plays a false 9. Luis Diaz plays a false 9. Maybe Cody Gakpo at times has played up there on the left-hand side or as a false 9. Is that going to be enough? Even with the signing of Florian Wirtz, even with the signing of Frimpong going down the right-hand side, is that going to be enough if and I keep going back to this, if Mo Salah somehow just drops off this phenomenal run of season after season, scoring the same amount of goals or more as a natural striker, if that drops off, who else is going to step up? And for all the talent that they have, that's going to be the big question for me, because at some point the age will catch up with the likes of the Salahs and the numbers will drop. And when that happens, Liverpool have to make sure they're in a position that somebody else can come in, not necessarily in that position, but come in that forward front three and make up for those goals, whether it be from the midfield or the front line. So if Nunez goes, which I think Liverpool are obviously trying to do, fine. But I do feel they will need somebody else in that position to at least come off the bench.
Meanwhile, for Manchester United, they're looking to get rid of some players who are costing them a lot of money at the moment. Rob, remind us how much Marcus Rashford makes a week?
It's about £350,000 a week. That's before any kind of bonuses. So that's exactly one of the reasons why it's going to be so hard to shift him. You know, United have had this problem in January. It was made clear to clubs that United would accept interest in him, but no one wanted to pay the wages. And he's got 3 years left on a massive contract. You know, United are really hoping for a permanent sale. That means getting a transfer fee in, but it also means a club coming in and paying £350,000 a week, which very few clubs in the world can afford. So you're left with Man United possibly having to pay half of that wage to get him out on loan. Maybe it means Marcus Rashford taking a pay cut, something that he didn't look like he wanted to do in January. Now, this could possibly be a massive issue for Man United, because they're going to return to pre-season training in the first week of July. And ideally, Ruben Amorim doesn't want Marcus Rashford there. He wants that deal all sorted so he can continue with pre-season training with his new squad. But the way things are going at the moment and the difficulty Man United have had historically in getting rid of players, the chances are that Marcus Rashford is going to be back at Carrington in the first week of July in pre-season training. And then the first time that the media see Ruben Amorim on tour in the United States, the first question of the first news conference is going to be about Marcus Rashford, and the whole thing could overshadow his entire summer as he tries to get Man United back on track. It's exactly what he doesn't want.
That was a question I was going to ask you, Rob. I mean, if they don't get him out, is there any chance of a reconciliation, or does Rashford come in, and bearing in mind Ruben Amorim's words last season, does he just basically jettison him to the side, or is there any chance he will try and involve him around the first team squad?
Or will Rashford drive the bus, really, kind of deflate all the tension?
I mean, and that is the big question. I mean, the way that Ruben Amorim handled Marcus Rashford last season suggests that he doesn't want him in the squad. I think that was pretty clear with the way that United treated his situation. Marcus Rashford thinks that as long as Ruben Amorim is manager, he's not going to get an opportunity. But that said, you know, you can't just leave a player of Rashford's ability and quality on a beach somewhere while you're doing pre-season training. And we saw last summer when Erik ten Hag made the decision to bring back Jadon Sancho. I mean, that situation looked irreparable last summer, and all of a sudden Jadon Sancho is on the plane to America for the pre-season tour. Now, I know that ended with Jadon Sancho leaving on loan to Chelsea on deadline day, but it always shows that there is a way back. And I think in terms of what Marcus Rashford wants to do, he clearly wants to go to Barcelona. Whether Barcelona have got the finances to do that is another question entirely. At some stage, there's going to have to be some kind of negotiation, because the longer there's a standoff, it's the worse for Man United and also for Marcus Rashford, because he wants to be playing football. He's got a World Cup that he wants to attend in the United States in 2026. He has to be playing football. So there's going to be a big decision have to be made there at some stage.
What was interesting last week, wasn't he? He was asked whether or not he'd like to play with Lamine Yamal, and he said, oh, yeah, most definitely. You want to play with the best players in the world. I imagine when you were at QPR, if they asked if you wanted to play with Lamine Yamal, you would have said, yes, Nate, I mean, but what you want doesn't necessarily materialise.
Yeah, I think Lamine Yamal's probably a bit too young at that point to be playing football. But we'll move on from that anyway, Dan. But yeah, I think in regards to that, yeah, it feels like it's an innocent question, but in reality, you know there's going to be a story off the back of it. And yes, it'd be great to play for Barcelona, fantastic. Lamine Yamal feeding you and so on. It would be so, so good. But in reality, as Rob's addressed and as we've addressed here, you know, there are certain financial issues that could, you know, greatly affect that, because Barcelona don't give me the sense of being a club that has tons of money to throw at players anymore. So yeah, that is a bit tricky. But yeah, if that's something that could happen somehow, then yeah, more power to him. But I'm just of the thinking as well, going into this next season, Rashford will be there to start the season, it looks like, but I don't know if this can be repaired as such, because there were points last season, I believe it was, where for Amorim, he was not picking Rashford regardless of whatever the money is. And I think historically, most clubs tend to be in a position where the people that earn the most money are almost forced upon a manager, because why would you spend all this money and not play him? Amorim seems to have the control of that. And if he comes back and say the window closes and Rashford's still there, listen, he's not going to be playing, is he? Because he's once said he's not good enough. And I don't think anything's going to have changed between the two of them coming into the next season.
Rob, was there any attempt from Aston Villa to do some sort of cut price deal here at all, or were they just happy to send them back?
I mean, it appears to us like they were happy to send it back. The price was known to Aston Villa, that they had a buy option of £40 million, but it came out with Aston Villa towards the end of last season that they had no intention of triggering that option. I'm not sure that was a huge disappointment for Marcus Rashford. I think he went to Aston Villa thinking this was a chance to play games and to get his career back on track. I think that he's got higher ambitions possibly than Aston Villa. We've spoken there about the likes of Barcelona. There's been interest from Bayern Munich and a little bit of interest from Juventus. He wants to be playing in the Champions League. His representatives have made that known, that he wants to be playing in the Champions League because he feels that's his level. Now, it's one thing wanting that. It's another thing having a club coming in and paying the money. At the moment, no one's been able to do that, and there's been no firm offer to Man United. Until that happens, ultimately, Marcus Rashford is in limbo.
Tell me about Antony, Rob.
Well, that's an easier deal to do. He's on a lower weekly wage than Marcus Rashford. He obviously had a very, very successful loan spell at Real Betis. Real Betis want to keep him. The issue with Antony is the fee that he came to Man United for. You know, he came in for the best part of €100 million, and there's just absolutely no chance that United are going to recoup any of that. The possibility is that Man United might have to sanction another season-long loan deal, pay part of Antony's wages to get him off the books and kick the issue down the line for a year and maybe address it again in the summer, next summer, sorry. That's obviously not what they want to do. They want to have clubs coming in, paying a fee, which is going to boost their transfer budget for this summer. But you know, they've got a lot of issues like this. Rashford is one, Antony's another, Sancho is also back. They don't want Alejandro Garnacho, but at the moment, all four are preparing to come back to training at Man United for the start of pre-season training at the start of July. And really, United need to start shifting some of these players out. A, because they need the money in to be able to buy more players and bring them in. And B, just to avoid an awkward situation for Ruben Amorim, because this is all about a fresh start for Ruben Amorim, and he doesn't want to be addressing these questions about Garnacho, Antony, Rashford and Sancho. He wants to move on and start preparing his team for the Premier League season. I just think this is going to turn out to be a very, very awkward situation for Man United and Ruben Amorim if it's not handled in the right way.
What about across the city and Jack Grealish, Rob?
Again, you know, a very difficult deal for Man City to do. He's on a lucrative contract. He's got 2 years left. The fact that he's not here in the US with City for the Club World Cup says everything about his standing with Pep Guardiola. You know, Pep Guardiola is here talking about this is my squad, this is going to be my squad going forward, and clearly Jack Grealish isn't part of that. Now, it depends on who comes in for him. He's on the best part of £300,000 a week. City paid £100 million for him not so long ago. Is any club in the Premier League going to come in and pay that kind of money for Jack Grealish, as good and as talented as he is? No. The City are already facing up to the prospect of maybe towards the end of the transfer window, a club coming in and offering to take him on loan for a year. You know, that helps City out in the short term, but Jack Grealish would then be back in a year's time and the issue would stay there. So all of these issues, whether it's Rashford at Man United or Grealish at City, they're awkward, and City United are fantastic payers. That's one of the ways that they attract the best players in the world to their football clubs. But when these deals go south and they're trying to get rid of these players, whether it's Rashford or Grealish, it's always a problem because they are two of the only clubs in the world who can pay this type of wages. No one else really in the Premier League can do it. Aside from Real Madrid and Barcelona, possibly, no one in Europe can do it. It's a really, really tough situation for these clubs because financially it just doesn't work for other clubs in the Premier League.
Nadim, if you could parachute Jack Grealish into any side in the world, where would it be to see him back to his best?
I think that's a good question. I think for general positivity and so on, I think probably just seeing back at Villa. I think seeing a Villa side who are more progressive now, who are in Europe again, you know, pushing for Champions League places and so on. Maybe that could be a way to get him back to his absolute best. But then, to be honest, I don't know if their style of play for today would really suit the way that Jack has played, say, in the recent years. But I think for a homecoming, it would be great for him to have that spark and have that buzz again. But as Rob said there, these are some really complicated transfers. And that thing about, say, being high payers, all these things go really well when you want it at a football club because they can afford to do it. You know, this is the long-term nature, everything's great. But then before you know it, you're left in this awkward position to say, well, who can afford it? And I think where Jack is probably different to some of these other players is that Jack Grealish is 30 years old in September. So whereas you can make a case for some of these other ones because they're mid-20s, early 20s and so on, you know, there's such a big future ahead. I think the way that some people perceive him would probably make it a bit harder for him to find a transfer that you'd probably like. But like you say, in response to your question, I think seeing Jack Grealish play for Aston Villa again is something that I think many of those Villa fans would be more than happy to see. I think for himself, he'd be more having a sense of, you know, feeling like he's back home again.
But it's a different Villa now, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing.
It's a Villa that
Where would you put him? Where do you think?
Has less struggles. It's a Villa that's more structured. It's a Villa that has a manager who's more demanding, who's more successful, who's driving this Villa bus in the right direction. And I don't know if they'd want to go down that road. And certainly they couldn't afford to go down that road in terms of wages. It would be down to the player having to take a huge wage cut. I don't really see that happening. I think it's a difficult one to place. Because there's inconsistency, there's lifestyle. I don't think that's something that's up for debate. And he has been as well publicised that he likes to go out and enjoy himself. Now, I'm not criticising any player for that, but that's a choice. That's a choice, and that does not help with the form, and that does not help with the injuries. And I go back to this. In the modern day game, you can't allow yourself to be left open to that. And I think that's one of the things and one of the reasons why he's lost the form, he's lost his place, and his manager, who in that year when they won the league and the Champions League and they beat Inter in the final, had so much confidence in him. Yeah. Had so much confidence in him because he was churning these performances out week in, week out. Wasn't scoring a lot of goals, but his performances were great. And that just disappeared. Now, he's not the only one. Foden's had his problems and one or two others. But it's been a big drop-off for Jack Grealish. And as Rob said, he's on big money. He's on big money. And so the only way I see him being placed somewhere is as a loan with City subsidising it, or a permanent transfer where Jack Grealish takes a big hit, takes a big haircut. And there's not a lot of players that are going to do that. It's more likely the likes of Jack Grealish will say at 30 years or whatever he is, I'll see out my last 2 years and try and I'll earn this money, whether I play or not, and then I'm a free transfer. That's kind of not chucking your career down the drain, but 2 years is a long time for a player just to basically sit on the sideline. So it's a very, very difficult scenario for the player, which has maybe been brought on by himself, and it's also a difficult scenario for City, who are clearly trying to offload some of these fringe players.
Meanwhile, you take a look at some other flops over the years, then Nkunku very much has got to be in the conversation. Given how good he was in the Bundesliga, came to Chelsea, struggled with injuries, but even at 100% fit, Rob, he has been a massive bust.
He has, because I think there was quite a lot of excitement at Stamford Bridge when they finally got that deal over the line. He was prolific in his last season in the Bundesliga. He scored a fantastic hat-trick against City, I think, in the Champions League. Really looked the part and looked like he would fit in the Premier League. And has obviously not been helped by injuries, but he just hasn't recreated that form that we saw in Germany. And you get to the point now where he's behind a player like Nicholas Jackson, who's got obvious talent, but he's very, very inconsistent. And you just have to hear the way that Maresca is talking about him. It looks like he hasn't really got a future at Chelsea. I think that he also looks like a player who looks like he needs a fresh start. He looks sort of beaten down really by what's happened at Chelsea the last couple of years, and he looks like he needs to go somewhere, be the main man, maybe feel loved again. The same really as we're talking with Jack Grealish. Somewhere where he's going to feel loved. He's going to be the main man and part of that team. Maybe we'll see him rediscover the form that he showed at Leipzig. Hopefully, because I think there's a wonderful player in there. He's just not gone and done it at Chelsea.
Rob, as always, what's the plan for this night, Rob? Disney World?
Oh, more work. You know me, Dan. More work. Never stop.
Man. Dear me. Thank you very much, Rob. Much appreciated. Be sure to check out Transfer Talk for all of the latest news that's going on in the transfer world. Just go to ESPN.com and find your way to transfers. Inter then advance 2-0. Just to confirm there how the group finishes. It will be Inter and Monterrey who advance to the next round. So we see this quite a lot, don't we? Like a lot of pushing and shoving. But then when I was going to ask you about your best tunnel stories, but does it ever materialise?
I don't like to see that. You know, it's not. It gets. I don't like. No, I mean, I suppose there's been the odd occasion, but it's very, very, very rarely. It's more generally pushing and shoving.
Right.
Haven't seen too many fists fly, thankfully. But yeah, I generally think we see more of this because there's so many people around, you know what I mean? And it's almost like...
Who was it that came knocking at your locker room door once when there was a bit of fighting?
Oh, Nigel Pearson.
Right.
Big Nigel, centre-half, Middlesbrough centre-half, Sheffield Wednesday centre-half. Yeah, Big Nigel tried to break into the Chelsea dressing room at half-time in the game against Sheffield Wednesday because our Russian goalkeeper Dmitry Karin had basically kung fu kicked Mark Bright in the back of the head on the way down the tunnel. And Nigel Pearson wasn't playing, he was in the tunnel because he was injured and he saw this and he tried to get in the dressing room. Now, Nigel's a lovely guy, he's been in the management, managed Leicester and Bristol. Nice guy, but he's a big old unit. And thankfully he never got in. Because Tony Cascarino barricaded the door. So if he'd have got...
Dimitri was having a shower and wouldn't come out for the second half.
Yeah, he took all his clothes off. Dimitri took all his clothes off and went in the shower and he said, no play. Crazy English football. Crazy. So Glenn Hoddle had to go in and convince him to come out. Literally, it's a true story. He had to convince him to put all his kit on and his goalie gloves and go back out and play the centre-half. Because he hadn't really seen that before in Russia, as somebody trying to break in your dressing room and knock your head off, basically.
Nadim, any tunnel stories?
Kind of, and to be honest, in relation to this piece here, like, I'm with Craig, these scenes, they're not great scenes and so on and so forth, but I will hold my hands up and say there have been times when the red mist has really kicked in within me, and I think seeing the way that Dumfries was having the altercation with him during the game, like, I probably would have had that same energy. I'll be honest with you, I would have said, let's go to the tunnel. Maybe people can sort of snap you out of it. But in that moment, those two guys are very much ready to go. And in some ways, I'll be honest, I don't hate it. If I was on Dumfries or I was on Cunha's side, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm defending you. This is a long-term thing. This isn't just from one incident on the pitch. This is years' worth of like animosity, it feels like. But yeah, in terms of the tunnel stories themselves, I remember... for me personally, it was actually with one of my own teammates. It was a guy I played with at Sunderland called John Mensah, and we were playing against Wolves. John Mensah, and we were playing. We don't say that name too many times. But we were playing this game against Wolves at home, and I didn't think he was having the best of games alongside me at centre half. And it got to a point to where, like, as I say, I just completely switched. So I came into the dressing room after the game, and I lost it with him. And then it was only as he started to rise up and I realised he's bigger than me, stronger than me, and wanted to murder me, that I thought, oh, maybe I should diffuse this just a little bit, because I was looking around thinking, am I actually going to have to fight him here? But in fairness, it didn't happen, thankfully. And as a consequence, I lived to fight another day,
See, I'm a mediator.
Don't Kofi Annan next to us.
I'm a mediator. I just like to...
Yeah.
For those people who can go on YouTube, maybe if it's a bit older for you, was Graham Lasso and David Batty in the same team.
Right, that was on the pitch, though.
On the pitch, playing for Blackburn Rovers, and I think in a European game. And Graham, he was a teammate of mine at Chelsea, Graham, who's now obviously works at NBC. He's quite a mild-mannered chap, Graham, but he threw a punch, I believe, at David Batty. So it kind of just...
And Lee Boyer didn't... And it was
Newcastle, Kieran Dyer. Yeah, sometimes things can spill over. And that's a difficult situation to be in, particularly when it's within your own camp.
Of course.
Then you have to go in the dressing room.
Well, we saw it at the end of the Wolves game, didn't we? Earlier on this season.
Fighting and stuff. That's when you need people like myself. You just calm things down.
Let's just take a look. Dan. Yes, mate. Yes, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, in regards to this, so one of my former teammates, he's unfortunately behind bars at this moment in time.
Okay.
But what I was going to reference was I've seen him have a few fights, and the thing is, like, there are some people who play football and there are some people who are footballers. And whenever he was having an argument with someone, I was very quick to let the person that he's arguing with know that this is going to escalate to a point which you will not be comfortable.
Right.
But then there were other people. I remember a point playing against Everton, and it was Phil Neville, and he had like a tackle with me. Then he stood up and was like, come on then, come on then, come on then. I was like, behave yourself. That is somebody that is a footballer.
Yeah.
My friend is somebody that just happens to play football almost as like a side gig. So there are different people in this footballing world, you could say.
Oh, good stuff.
I mean, we'd fight. Nathan and I would fight you.
Well, yes, obviously.
Wouldn't we, Nathan?
And Phil Neville. Yeah. I'm the Phil Neville camp of people. Group H, then what are we doing here? Let's just take a look. Oh, this is to this evening to see which side of the bracket Real Madrid will be on. Meanwhile, it's confirmed today that Cristiano Ronaldo is staying at Al Nassr. He remains then in Saudi Arabia. Remember, his contract was up. He was flirting maybe with some clubs to come play in the Club World Cup, but in the end, he puts pen to paper. I think he should be fine financially now, shouldn't he, until 2027.
It looks lovely in the background, doesn't it?
Well, yes, is that the real background? That's definitely not real, is it? No. That's green screen, surely, or a poster.
It does look like a bit of AI. Hey, up with it. AI.
Up with it. Welcome in then to the latest edition of Extra Time. Nadim and Craig with us. Nadim, you see England are in the under-21 Euro final. Is that what you went to with Kieran back in the day? I was trying to think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we went to that final. They've got absolutely battered by Germany. Yeah, that is exactly what happened to us. But hopefully, it will not happen to this England team this weekend.
Did you get hauled off at half time in that game?
I was taken off at half time at 1-0 to Germany.
Right.
And as I then watched the game finish, it finished 4-0 to Germany.
There we go.
So Stuart Pearce made a decision which perhaps wasn't good for the nation. Let's just
It
put
was
it
a
that way.
tactical switch.
Stuart Pearce.
It was a tactical switch.
You, Dan Thomas, speak about Chelsea so harshly. It's clearly a rebuild. We went from 12th to 6th to 4th, but you talk like we had a season like Manchester United or Arsenal, who are expected to win the title. I suppose, yeah, harsh on Chelsea, but for a reason. You spent a lot of money and you had so much potential at the start of last season when you were battling and we were talking about whether or not to go all the way for a title. And then for some reason, you put the handbrake on, and I don't care how well you did in the last 2 months and the great results that you got. To watch Chelsea at the moment is really hard work. And I think as a fan, you deserve better.
You go for it, son.
No, that's what have I said anything out of turn? I think it's fair enough, isn't it?
You go for it. You know, people picking on you.
I know.
In your condition.
I know. Oh,
You know what I mean?
How can people do that?
There's just no sort of empathy out there.
No, Nadim, are my expectations of Chelsea too high?
Not really, but then there were fans that were protesting around February, March time because Chelsea weren't doing well enough. But in fairness, I think what most fans don't realise is the fact that you hate everybody. So as a consequence, don't take it personally. Just accept it for what it is.
Well, that's it. Nadim, who's got the worst pitch in your MLS days? Stevie and Ali were talking about it last night, of course.
So the pitch that stood out for me when I was playing was actually playing in Minnesota because that pitch cut up quite a lot. So say, for example, if you make like a slide tackle, there'd be like big chunks of the pitch that would just all of a sudden just rise up. But I think it's because it was a new stadium and the new pitch was trying to bed in. But the one that probably stuck out to me the most was playing in Vancouver at BC Place, I think it's called. That AstroTurf there, for some reason, when I played there, it wasn't even flat. It was probably one of the worst pitches that I've played on. But since then, I think it has improved. But yeah, as I left there, I thought, wow, I did not enjoy that and hope to not do it again.
Are they still playing at that? I know it was after Nadim. Are they still playing at that baseball stadium in New York?
Yes, there are plans now to build.
NYCFC,
I believe
FC.
Yankee Stadium is the stadium. The Yankees are a baseball team.
That's what I said.
No, I think you said that stadium.
Baseball.
Yes.
I said baseball.
Okay, yes, but Yankees.
But it looks ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah,
From
the dimension sides are very weird.
Aesthetic point of view.
Very strange, yes. Have you been to a baseball game since you've been here? Was that anything you'd like to go and watch?
I haven't been to a baseball game, haven't been to a basketball game.
Right.
Haven't been to an NFL game.
No.
Haven't been to an ice hockey match.
Right. What have you done with your life?
Not a lot, really.
Hockey's good. Hockey's good. Much better to go to a hockey game in person than I know.
Ice hockey.
Why am I telling you?
No,
this?
I'm not really. I'll be honest. I'm not really a big into going to a sporting event for the atmosphere.
Right.
Because a lot of people like to experience that, and that's understandable. But most of us have experienced that from a playing perspective. So I actually enjoy watching most of the sports.
Yes.
From the sofa.
Yeah.
Because I think you get a better perspective. And I just don't. And also, what gets me now is just how busy these stadiums get after games.
Right.
With the traffic and stuff.
Want to leave, yeah.
Although I have been to the Travellers Golf, not this year.
Right.
But I have been to that a few times.
That doesn't really count. Nathan, I imagine when you were playing over here, did you try and immerse yourself into more of these sports than, say, Mr. Burley?
Yeah, I did, but I think maybe it's because I knew I was there for a short period of time. So
No,
I know some people are into it, but I was watching the Jazz. I was watching, and I got into college sport quite a lot.
Right.
So I was watching the Utes, the football team. Made a friend who now plays in the NFL as well through that, and yeah, tried to watch as much as I could, and then just learn about the culture. Getting a chance to go to the Staples Center, for example, when we went and played in LA in MLS as well. I tried to do that, but I enjoy that sort of like touristy side of things because for me, I knew the experience was going to end in 2 years' time.
Yes.
I watch it. I'm not saying I don't watch. I'm not ignorant to American sports.
Okay.
Particularly NFL. I watch it. I just have no appetite to go to like MetLife to watch the Giants or the Jets or whoever the hell plays there. I definitely wouldn't watch the Jets.
No.
Who won with the Jets?
Do Arsenal?
Who's going to support the Jets?
Do Arsenal, Craig, even know at this point which striker to target? Heard it's Sesko, Kerkez and Isak. Should the Arsenal board resign if they don't sign one this summer? Wow.
Well, I can't. I think Edu left. I'm not sure off the top of my head who's in there as in head of recruitment at the moment. But we've just talked on the main show about Liverpool doing some, on the face of it, some very good business and very early. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on Arsenal because City have spent money.
Yes.
Right. They've recruited both in January and now, and there is no way in the world, right? You cannot sell me the story of Arsenal going in again with Kai Havertz. Mm-hmm. Right, he cannot sell that to the Arsenal base. So they're going to have to do something. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of criticism.
Like Isak isn't going. He's not going to go from Newcastle unless they give like 150
the fact
million.
that they clambered in by the skin of their teeth to the Champions League probably saved that transfer from Newcastle's perspective. Kerkez coming in from Sporting, I just don't know. I mean, he's had a spell in the Championship as a younger player and it wasn't exactly brilliant. But he has been scoring a lot of goals, clearly, in the Portuguese league. And Sesko, a young player playing in Germany. But whatever they do, they're going to have to do something.
And quick.
And also, last year they were linked with Ollie Watkins. Now, but Ollie Watkins lost form at the end of the season. Is that something that they're looking at if they don't get the number one target, that Watkins is maybe over here? I just don't see Ollie Watkins and his current guys as the number one target for Arsenal. I think it would be Alexander Isak, but as you said, I think there's a fat chance of prizing him from Newcastle unless they chuck a bucket load of cash at it.
Final question, Naden. Do you keep tabs on all of your former clubs or just Manchester City? Because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on QPR's new manager.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I haven't been keeping a track of much. So I didn't know QPR had a new manager until probably 10 seconds ago.
Okay, good. At least you're honest.
I'm not kept a track on that.
Well, I'll look it up for you.
Listen, I am honest, but thank you. But I do keep a track of their results. I keep track of City, obviously, as you know. I do QPR. I was obviously big on Sunderland, especially now they've been promoted again. And for Salt Lake as well, I see how they're doing, but it's been a tough start to the season for them. So when there's something more positive to talk about, I might speak about them a little bit more. But I do keep a track on it because I enjoyed my time in all those places.
If we were to wander around with you on a match day at QPR, what sort of reception would you get from the fans? A positive one?
Well, yeah, I would do, yeah. My last game at QPR was a good one. It was the last game of the season. I'd been there 6.5 years. And, as I was walking around doing that lap of honour at the end of the game, people were like singing my name.
Wow.
which is a far cry from 3 years earlier, where unless my name was Boo, I don't think they were necessarily talking to me.
And that was polite.
So I left in good spirits. There's a good connection there, and as time passes, I think I look back more fondly at some of those days because we were a little bit better in the Championship as well as obviously getting a chance to play in the Premier League. So I would get a good reception, but I've not really been invited back yet. So I'm hoping maybe they've just forgotten about me.
And what about
even though it's been
Sunderland?
7 years.
Well, how long were you at Sunderland? 1 season long?
I was there 1 season long, but people always reminded the fact I played for Sunderland on November 15th because it would be the Premier League goal of the day and it'd be my goal against Chelsea.
Oh, that one.
So that's my little reminder that happened. So and so when Sunderland play Chelsea this year at Stamford Bridge, feel free to bring me on the show and I'll talk you through it down.
No, we will do.
Julian Stephen.
Okay.
No idea.
Brilliant.
French. Frenchman.
Careful. That is it. That brings us to the end of today.
What do you think I was going to say?
I don't know.
Nothing.
ESPN FC returns tomorrow. Are you here tomorrow as well?
No. No, I need a rest.
Okay, back for the weekend, of course, when the knockout stages of the Club World Cup kick off.